Hey, Brandon, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello.
Hey, David.
How are you, Melissa?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Good. I'm glad you set the reminder through Basecamp because I don't know why I can never remember Monday mornings.
Because it's Monday.
I know because it's Monday and I'm thinking of all the other crap I have to do all this week.
What does your Monday normally look like, Melissa?
So Monday mornings is usually because I really try to take Sundays off as much as possible and like kind of just reset and spend time with the kids and Brett and so Monday mornings are usually okay. All this stuff. This is what I need to plan. I kind of try to have to plan out my week and figure out what I need to do to get ready for whatever's coming up during the week and stuff like that. So that's usually my Monday morning is playing catch up. How about you?
Awesome. I Monday's a little bit different because this call, usually I would be at the gym I usually head to the gym at 8:30, and
Mhm.
I have another like a coaching call that I do at 8:30, but I don't have to participate, so I just listen to it.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like you, it's catching up from the weekend, and I need to what I'm going to be doing beginning today is being more proactive and making phone calls. I'm going to be calling every one of you guys, not necessarily every Monday, but probably today. You should be
Yeah.
everybody, whether you can take the call or not. But I'm going to just start being a lot more proactive about driving this and not just letting it coast. So
Cool. Very cool.
yeah,
I like it.
I like it too. Well, I got back about 12 hours ago from a magical, amazing 5 days on
Yeah.
Long Beach Island, where I was participating in a group immersion event.
Uh-huh.
I didn't really fully understand what immersion meant. I mean, and now I do. It's going all in and losing yourself and just coming up for air every time that you can. We arrived Wednesday, um, took a bus 2 hours from Newark Airport down to the island, and then went immediately into um, a classroom style setting and
Hmm.
were taught and did exercises and recorded videos and did all these practice things. And they kept us there until midnight. And then as we
Wow.
were closing on midnight at Wednesday night, they're
Hmm.
like, meet us on the beach at 6:30. It's sunrise, jumping in the water, like wear your suit, be on the beach. And it was
Wow.
cold. It was cold. And but we were just confronting our fears. And what was amazing is before we would go out, our leader would say, listen, like you're going to be tempted to complain about being cold, you're going to be tempted to complain
Yeah.
about bug bites and the wind blowing and whatever else. Like focus on the positive, focus on the positive.
Uh-huh.
And so we focused on the positive, and we made a decision beforehand to do that. And then
Hmm.
as we got there and we were shivering because it was so cold, instead of complaining about it, we just started doing jumping jacks and warmed our bodies up, and
Uh-huh.
then watched the sunrise and went body surfing in that 60-degree water. And
Wow.
nobody needed coffee after. Nobody needed coffee. And it was like that. And they kept us until midnight again Thursday night. And
Wow.
and then again Friday morning up early. And it was like that the entire time. And it's amazing because even though like I wasn't going to bed until 1 and I was
Hmm.
getting up at 6 most days, um, I didn't come home exhausted. Like I don't feel jet lagged today after having done that for the past 5 days. I guess because my quality of sleep was really, really good because I was so tired when I did go to
Yeah.
bed. Um, but one of the things that they taught us that they shared about yesterday morning session was being nice versus confronting the truth, right? And so how do we make a determination between being nice, especially in the South? This is true. Like,
Hmm.
one of the ladies from Chicago was there. She was saying she had learned when she's in the South and somebody says, bless your heart, that's not a compliment. That's not like they're not being nice. But we have this way of communicating to people in inauthentic ways. And a lot of times people
Hmm.
don't really know where we truly stand. And especially there's
Right.
this peer pressure here to be nice, not so much in New York City, but definitely in
Right.
Charlotte. There's like, you don't honk the horn at people. Like up there at Newark Airport, it was like this chorus of car horns all the
Yeah.
time. And here, like, that's just really rude. So what is the difference between being rude and being nice? And is it appropriate even within real estate? This was not a real estate conference, this was not real estate
Right.
coaching, but are we, like, when should we be nice? When should we look the other way, turn the other cheek?
Hmm.
And he used the example of like being in a busy place. Now, so by the way, Sean Callaghy, who is the leader of this movement, is blind. Like he has a little bit of peripheral vision, and that's been deteriorating year after year. At some point, he'll be completely and totally without sight, but he pretty much is now and has been for
Yeah.
all of his adult life. And it doesn't keep him from surfing. It doesn't keep him from really doing anything other than driving. Thank God he's not
Yeah.
driving. But um, but he's fearless and he does whatever he wants to do. And he's an amazing example. And so I was completely blessed by it. But so that said, he's blind. And
Hmm.
he doesn't use a like a seeing eye dog. He doesn't use like one of the stick things that they tap the ground with.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what those are called, but he
Hmm.
just feels his way most of the time.
Wow.
And a lot of times, he'll have somebody guiding him that he'll, kind of hold on to or walk really close to. Um, but occasionally he might bump into somebody. And um, probably it happens more in New Jersey than it would in Charlotte or somewhere even out west. When you bump into somebody, sometimes they get in your face. And so he used that example, like if somebody gets in your face, do you like put them in their place or do you just turn the other way? And one of the determining factors would be when you have the idea or the temptation or the feeling that you should defend yourself, like defend your honor, not like defend yourself physically, but like,
Hmm.
no, no, you watch where you're going kind of a thing, is are you acting out of ego? And if you're acting out of ego, you probably should just not go there and just allow that person to have their way and just say, excuse me, I'm sorry, and move on. Um, or what if you're in that same situation, you accidentally bump into somebody and they get in your face about it, and you're there alone, you just say, not because you're afraid, but because you don't want to, there's no need. That person doesn't care who you are. They'll never care who you are. So just let it
Hmm.
go. Versus what if you're there with your children? What if your children perceive your gracefully bowing out as fear? And if your children could potentially perceive that as fear, that's probably not a good thing. You don't want to set that example. So maybe you have a confrontation with that person and you lovingly with a little bit of a powerful energy come back at them and explain it was an accident. I'm sorry that happened, but I'm also not going to let you disrespect me. Not
Mhm.
to defend your own ego, but to set the proper example for your children. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
That that was a great distinction for me because I'm often in a place where people are rude out in public. It happens. Sometimes I'm confident. I know that there have been times where I've done something not intentionally, but other people could perceive it as having been rude or disrespectful. And so those kinds of things always happen. There's always room for that kind of an error. So the important distinction for me was I'm not going to defend my ego, but I will defend my children's perception or other people's perception if I need to, if they're there, if they are witnessing what's going on. And for those of you, Lindsay, Johanna, who just came on, it's we're talking about like if you're in a public place and you accidentally bump into somebody and they get in your face about it, are you going to just walk away or are you going to get back in their face? And the distinction is, the lesson in it is, we don't need to defend our own ego. We don't need to defend our own honor for the sake of our own pride. In other words, does that make sense?
Yes.
This was an important distinction for me. Now, sometimes we're always given a choice, right? So there are really three choices. One is just to let it go. And so in that first example, you're out alone, some person is rude, and this applies to our business. This applies with working with other agents in particular. I mean, we've all, if you've been in the business long enough, there are times when other agents come at us because they have usually their own ego problems. And are we going to let that go? Are we going to just deflect that? Or are we going to use a Star Wars analogy, whip out our lightsabers and cut them to pieces? The distinguishing factor again is, are we acting out of pride and arrogance and defending our own identity for the sake of our own well-being and feeling good about ourselves? Or are we doing it out of a desire to see the truth revealed, in love for that person, in love for the people who are with us? So if our kids are with us, we might act one way. If we're alone, we might act another way. If we're hanging out with our peers and they already know who we are, they already know that we're good people, they already know that we're upstanding, fine people who are not afraid to have a confrontation, we could probably let that go, right? The thing is to be motivated by a love for other people, not a love for ourselves. Does that resonate with anyone? You could nod or shake your head. Okay, thank you. When we do confront, it's incredibly important. So an example from our day-to-day as being real estate professionals, sometimes you will get a call from another realtor who has some attitude, who is accusing you of doing something that maybe you did, and you did it in integrity, and there was nothing wrong with what you did. Maybe you made a mistake, and most likely, probably instead of the first two, it's most likely that this person is just crazy or they're seeing something in the wrong way. For example, I had a listing one time that was not in an HOA, and I listed the house in the MLS field. I put none in the HOA field, and this woman who happened to live in that little area of town, that area of town had a name, and that to her, she wanted, for the sake of tracking the listings and the sales that went in her little area, she wanted it to be called, let's say, I don't remember, let's say it was Greenwich Village in Charlotte. And it was these like little 3 blocks. And she wanted me to change the listing to properly reflect what she thought it should be, even though it's not in an HOA. And if you have somebody searching for a home not in an HOA and you put in something that's not accurately actually in an HOA, it could skew the results. And I didn't want to do it. Right. So she came at me attacking like I did it wrong, where in fact, I hadn't done it wrong. I just didn't do it the way that she wanted. And so I politely declined, and it kind of led to her letting off some steam, and I was fine with that. But there wasn't a need for me to fight with her because it wouldn't serve any purpose, right? That you guys had experiences like that probably. So when you have to confront somebody like in that situation, the first step is to do it with empathy. Like, I understand where you're coming from. And not even, thank you for telling me. Thank you for sharing your heart with me. Thank you for all of these different things. I'm not agreeing with you. I'm not validating that your opinion is accurate or that your words are true. However, I am acknowledging and trying to empathize with your position and giving credence to the fact that maybe you're right and perhaps I'm wrong. And then to always treat that person with respect, even if they come at you with angriness, anger, is angriness a word? Anger and accusation and all of these terrible things, let it go. We just let it go. When we have to confront somebody, like the first example, we're out in the middle of we're at an outdoor concert or whatever it is, and somebody gets in our face. We want to not accuse the person of being a certain way, of doing a certain thing. We just want to point out the action that needs correction. And this is really helpful with dealing with our children. The way you spoke to your brother, the facial expression where you looked at him like you're a crazy psycho about to, do terrible things, the facial expression, the tone of voice, it's not necessarily the words you used, but the way you communicated was inappropriate, it was harmful, and this is why. So we do it with precision, and then we do it with directness. And this is something that was really helpful for me to learn, is being direct, because I was raised, and especially being here in the South, I don't know if any of you can relate, but I was raised to be nice. And I don't know that I really understood what it meant or what it means to be nice. Have you heard the expression, nice guys finish? What is it? Anybody? First, second, last. Usually nice guys finish last, right? Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa. Why is that? Why is it? Well, there's a perception that nice people are doormats. They're willing to just let other people walk all over them. And that's unfortunate. There is a mindset, there's a tendency to believe that if you're not nice, somehow you are wrong. And the distinction is being nice, depending on how you define nice, treating people with kindness sometimes requires telling them things that they don't want to hear. Sometimes we have to, and this specifically with clients, sometimes with other agents, sometimes with our spouse who we all love without end, sometimes with other people that we just run into. And it could even be you're in the grocery store and you witness a confrontation, or you witness another customer berating the 16-year-old kid at the cash register. Sometimes the right thing is sometimes the nice thing, the kind thing the most loving, best thing is to step in and confront. When you have a buyer who says, I want to get a 3-bedroom house with a pool in Ballantyne for $250,000, the best thing is to say, that's probably not going to happen. We're confronting with the truth. And then we bring in the precision of why. Let me show you the comps. Maybe you can't get Ballantyne, but you could probably get Hamlet, North Carolina, which is 2 hours away. It's a bit of a commute, but it's going to get you the pool and the 3 bedrooms that you want, right? Here's another big one. This was a distinction that I picked up yesterday that I will implement, that I've already implemented in my home. Been home for 13 hours now. And this was really helpful for me. It is not uncommon that one of my children will come to me and say, if I tell you something, do you promise to not let it get back to me? Do you promise to not tell that other child that you heard it from me? In the past, out of loving care for my children, I would say without any kind of reservation, yes, absolutely, because I don't want negative things going on in my home. And there will still be times in the future that in this little ecosystem of the Doty home, there will be times when I need to protect my children from one another. And I get that. But in a work environment, if let's say you're dealing with a husband and wife, seller or buyer, and the husband says to you privately, I know that we've told you we could spend up to 500,000. My wife doesn't want you to know this, but we could actually go up to 700,000 for the perfect home. But don't tell my wife that I told you that. That is putting you or me in a very precarious situation. And so in kindness and in love and in integrity, we might need to respond, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. We all have to be on the same page. How about we have a group call and I ask some more direct questions, but I'm not going to start showing you $700,000 homes because you're willing to see them and your spouse is not yet. Does that make sense? Because what could happen? What could happen, Melissa, if you were in that situation, you were showing Heather and me homes, and I came to you and said, don't tell Heather, we can actually afford 750, but Heather doesn't want to spend that much. We're going to stick with 500, but show us some $700,000 homes because that's what I really want. And that's what she wants too. She just doesn't know it yet. And we can't afford it. How is that going to hurt you potentially?
Well, then the wife is going, what the heck are you showing me these houses for? And they're in love with maybe they're in love with these houses, but she's not there at that price point, and then she resents you. So it just causes a mess.
It causes a mess, right? She could say, what if she came to you privately and said, look, I noticed that you took us to these 2 homes. Did David ask you to do that?
Right.
And
And then you have to decide, are you going to lie about it? Or are you going to be like, well, yeah. And then that causes problems sometimes between the husband and wife where they're at odds. And I've had couples fight in front of me and, be put in the middle. That's not fun. So, yeah.
it's not fun, and there's no way to win. There's
Right.
absolutely no way to win.
Yeah,
And
you
so
can't take a side,
mhm.
and yet you're stuck there in the middle, and it just causes a really crazy, awkward situation.
Another way to look at that, another way to phrase that is the ability to keep people anonymous perpetuates drama, and drama is never good. Drama is never good. It's never helpful. Does anybody here want more drama in their life?
No.
I don't. I mean, I've kind of got enough. I think back to my corporate America days. Oh my gosh, I quit. I walked away from a 6-figure salary and regular 5-figure bonuses because of the drama and the politics. Like I could not deal with it. And I didn't have a plan either. Like I walked away toward nothing because I just couldn't deal with it. Some people thrive on it, and I don't want to give those people room in my life. The people fine, but they're not going to bring their baggage. So just to kind of sum this up and bring it together, if we define nice as secretly being hurt and not saying anything about it, or to go a step further, secretly being hurt, and then when people say, are you okay? Brandon, are you okay? It seems like you seem like you might not be, did something I say offend you? And we lie and say, no, I'm good, I'm fine. We're becoming part of the problem. We're perpetuating the problem. By being nice or defining nice in such a way that it means we're going to not deal with issues, those issues get buried, and they grow and they grow and they grow and they grow, and eventually, like a volcano, the pressure has to be relieved, and a lot of times it results in the end of the relationship, whether it's another agent, whether it's a client, God forbid it be a spouse or a family member or somebody else that we're destined to do life with. We have to, in love, with empathy, respect, precision, and directness, deal with the issue. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about anything that we just talked about? Does it resonate? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I didn't grow up here in the South, but I grew up in the Pacific Northwest with parents that also were very, shove your feelings deep down. Don't let anybody know that you're pissed off. Be nice. And that's the way they still are to this day. I never know how my parents really feel about anything because they won't tell me. Truthfully, they'll just be nice about it. So it definitely resonates with me. And sometimes I feel like maybe I'm a doormat in some instances because, you replicate how you grew up. And so I know that for me, I've had to kind of become a chameleon, especially with working with a lot of people from maybe New York or New Jersey that are maybe a little bit more abrupt. And I've just had to learn that you have to push back a little bit. You have to set your boundary with people like that, or you will get run over. So, but yeah, so it definitely resonates with me.
I have 100 years of heritage from the Pacific Northwest, and totally can relate. So,
Mhm.
so growing up here in North Carolina since middle school, Charlotte area since high school, and having my grandparents, um, who were raised primarily in Seattle, my mom being born in
Uh-huh.
Tacoma, going to West Seattle High School, we would go home to be with the family, and it was an ongoing family joke that my grandmother, would be at the like long Thanksgiving banquet table, not like fancy, but family like card tables strung together, and my grandmother would pick up a piece of bread, and she'd say, she'd point to somebody like three people down. Would you like some butter? Would you like some butter for your bread? And the person, like, if they're new to the family, maybe they were an in-law who just married in, or they were unaware, or they just wanted to mess with grandma, they would say, no, I'm good, I don't need any butter. And then she would ask the next person, would you like some butter? And then eventually somebody would get tired of her asking everybody if they wanted butter, and they would say, here, grandma, you want the butter? Oh yes, thank you so much. you know and that was the culture of my mom's side of the family. Like, you don't ask for what you want, you ask everybody else for what you want, and eventually you might get it. And we can cut through all of that if we're just a little bit more direct, like my Uncle Lou, who was fearless.
I think too, with people you don't necessarily know well, like clients that weren't necessarily in like your close sphere of influence, like just even from like when I worked in retail management, like for many years, like the biggest way that you prevent people who are coming in to steal high priced merchandise off your tables is enhanced customer service. It's being present and friendly and attentive. And it's like, we're talking about confrontation, but depending on the level of depth, like some people are coming like another agent across the transaction, we may or may not have another transaction with them. It's like a short-term relationship, so you could kind of like, choose not to get offended, choose not to read between the lines, even if it sounds like, and cultural differences are a big deal. I lived in New York for a couple of years from Ohio. And I was like, why do people honk their horns so much? Why do people yell so much? But it's like, they're not offended when you do it back. That's how you communicate. Like, if it's like, I'm like, I'm going to confront this. It's like, that's just talking, like you have to kind of like get in there it's just interesting. So some of these like intensity that we feel sometimes it probably is like snarky or offended. And sometimes it's just like, I didn't have the time to overthink my communication via email. And it's just very short and direct, So I don't know. I feel like in those cases, you just like, how can I help you? Like even that situation with the couple who have a $200,000 difference on their budget. It's like, no, I can't, I'm going to stick with the parameters that you gave me until you guys can come up with an agreement, because that's what I've had. But would a financial planner, do you guys have one? Because maybe that conversation could help you come up with a compromise, so she's not afraid of a bigger budget and you guys can get on the same page. Like, just what's the issue and how can I help you? I don't know.
Mhm.
Absolutely, Lindsay. And what you're saying is you're speaking into listening, and active listening involves asking questions, right? So
Totally. And being
sounds simple.
observant, like even like, you seem like you're about to steal some jeans off my table. Like it really is interesting that the way I can make the biggest sales and the way I can prevent somebody who has poor motives are like the same thing, which is being present, asking good questions, so it's like, not that that relates completely into retail, but it does in the sense of just like really that confrontation is really just, here's my presence. It's friendly, it's helpful, it's attentive, but it's right here. You can find me right in front of your face,
Yeah. Perfect example from that I experienced from this weekend. The purpose of this immersion was integrity-based group influence, how to speak before a crowd, how to level up. Sometimes you confront, and the thing is, we confront into the most pressing thing, like, oh, it seems like you're about to steal those jeans. Is there anything I can help you with? Like, you're not avoiding it. You're going right to your directness. You're going directly to the point of contention and dealing with it, right? You're not skirting around the issue, and it addresses it. We had all kinds of amazing people come in and speak this weekend and share, and many of them were incredibly dynamic speakers. I don't know if you guys know Chris Crone. Chris Crone was there almost the entire 5 days. There was a guy named Joshua Earp, descendant of Wyatt Earp, amazing, phenomenal, brilliant mind. And then they brought in the CEO. I'm not going to say his name, just out of respect for him. Amazing guy, incredible guy, has managed billion-dollar companies, is the CEO of this new startup that a couple of these gentlemen are bringing to the table, and they were giving us an opportunity to invest. So they bring in the CEO of this group of people to this group of 100 people who have been learning about public speaking and group influence. And he pulls out a slide deck and begins going through it, talking like this. And like 5 minutes in, everybody had their phone out. People were scrolling Facebook. He had completely lost it. Now, the nice thing to do for many of us, for myself included, would be to let him muddle through it and then afterwards give him some constructive criticism. Maybe what Sean did, and I was grateful for it, we were all grateful for it, was like, hey, all right, we're going to stop. We're going to pause the slideshow and we're going to address something. And then he points to us and he turns to like the 100 people at sitting in this room, and he says, who's paying attention? And everybody was like, trying to be polite, nobody's paying attention, but nobody wanted to say it. And then he turns to the CEO and he's like, how do you feel like you're doing? And the guy's going, I don't know. Like, I had never thought about it. And then he says, you are an amazing speaker. Like, you are an amazing person. You have amazing information here. And you've totally lost the crowd. Can you feel that you've lost the crowd? And he's like, yeah, which kind of made him a little bit more nervous, which kind of made him wanted to get through it just a little bit faster. So he started speaking lower and faster and clicking. And he's from Germany, Moroccan born, lives in Germany, has a little bit of an accent, was a little hard to understand. And the more he lost us, the faster he just wanted to get through it and get it over with. And he completely lost us even more. Whereas he was coached to say in front of us all, which had to be horrific for him, but tremendously helpful once he got over the initial shock of it, to press in and to say, hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous because my English isn't, I know the English, I mastered the English language, but I have an accent. It might be a little bit hard for you to hear, but just to press into the very thing that was present for everybody in the room. And it completely changed. And this company is going to be phenomenal. And he ended up getting nearly 100% engagement from the room as a result of that very important intervention, as uncomfortable as that was. So that was a great lesson. Appreciate your input, Lindsay. Brandon, did you want to add anything? You driving the kids to school?
No, I was just listening in. I was kids don't have school today, so I'm out farming a neighborhood right now. So
Awesome.
just listening in.
Awesome. Go farming. The most important piece of this for me was to confront in love when it's better for that person. And so the CEO of a company that you are invested in is incredibly important. Like that's an ongoing relationship. Some guy you bump into in a crowd, probably will never see him again. Probably doesn't matter if you confront that behavior. If it's a spouse or a client, somebody that you have to work with, you have an ongoing relationship with, you most likely do want to continue and confront that because you're going to have that relationship. We avoid conflict when it doesn't matter. We don't engage just when we disagree with people. We're at lunch and somebody says, oh, the Panthers won 20-3 yesterday. And then the subject changes. In fact, the Panthers lost. It doesn't matter. Nobody likes to be corrected. So if it doesn't matter, then just let it slide. Just keep it moving. We don't engage when we disagree with people. We don't correct people. It can upset people to be corrected. So there's just no need unless it's necessary. And so we only do it when it must be done. And again, the filter or the way we determine whether or not it needs to be done again is, do we have a relationship ongoing with that person? And most importantly, are we acting out of our own ego, protecting our own feelings of ourselves and how important we are, or are we doing it out of love for others? Again, when it comes to kindness, let's not lie to protect our own fears. So when somebody says, how are you doing? And you're not doing well, and that person has the ability to change or to fix or to address the issue, not necessarily fix it, or if they're part of the problem, let's, with empathy and humility and love for that person, be honest. Let's not protect our own fears and call it being nice, because it's actually not very nice. With that, anybody have anything they want to share? Okay. I hope you guys found this helpful. Love you guys. I'm here if you need me, and I'll probably talk with most of you later today.